Well,
Question, Ken?
oh, I was gonna say that, had kind of a similar thing. My son was at kind of a summer school program that go out and do things. And he came home one day with a jar. And he says, I've got a pollywog. Can I keep him? And I says, well, you gonna feed him? Yeah. What are you gonna feed him? Oh, fish food. And I says, all right, you can keep him if you take care of it and everything else. But whatever you do, don't kiss it because it will turn into a frog. He says, nah. I says, you watch him as it goes along. Well, I kind of left it at that. A couple of weeks later, I asked him, well, how's your polywog? Oh, it's fine, but it looks like it's doing something different. It's almost looks like it's growing frog legs on it. Frog, haven't you? No, honest. Well, I used that to tell him. I says, I know you haven't, and I told him that they grow, and as they grow, they change. Just like that happens to people, and go into things like that. But he was watching it, and the difference in changes. Instead of using a jar, you had to lower the water and put a rock in there, and all that sort of thing. So we had a good time. So anyway, I thought this kind of fit in that a little bit.
Yeah. Don't go kissing pollywogs.
Turn into a frog.
Or princess.
I know, I was thinking of a prince.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I got that idea.
We're in Joshua 12, beginning with verse 6.
Oh. Cold and sick.
I have my phone kind of ready to read all these kings. So when we get to verse 9, we'll use that, and we'll be able to skip somebody having to read all of those names. Okay.
All right.
So, actually, we did read verse. No, we didn't read verse 6. Okay, so we're going to start with Moses, the servant of the Lord. Paul, did you read chapter 12? 12, just verse 6.
Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the people of Israel defeated them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land for a possession to the Reubenites and the Gadites.
Okay, so Reuben was the oldest son. I remember that. Reuben was the oldest. So I'm assuming that he said, I want to have that first land that we've had. But little did he know it would cause so much trouble because there's no natural boundary to keep other people away. So all these tribes that were on the eastern side of the Jordan River had a tough time in the future. Much better to have the River Jordan to protect you, especially when it was at flood stage, which it was when they crossed it, it was at flood stage. It was really roaring through there when God separated it so that they could cross the Jordan River earlier on. And then, let's see. Okay. Sorry about that. So then we also had Gad and Manasseh. And I was trying to think last time, who was blessing Joseph's children? Well, of course, that was Jacob. So Jacob was blessing them. And so Joseph's children were Ephraim and Manasseh. Manasseh was the oldest. And when Jacob went to bless them, Joseph had them put correctly for him because Jacob couldn't see. So he had them set correctly for them, put his hands on them and bless with his right hand, the oldest. But Jacob switched his hands and blessed Ephraim instead. So that's kind of a funny story. He blesses Ephraim, even though Manasseh was born first. And in fact, why don't we turn to that? Let's turn to Genesis 48. Interesting review.
Genesis, what did you say?
48.
Genesis 48.
Oh, yeah.
So let's read 48, 1 and 2. We'll read a little bit of 48. Stephanie, could you read 48, 1 and 2 of Genesis?
After this, Joseph was told, "Behold, your father is ill." So he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told to Jacob, "Your son Joseph has come to you." Then Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed.
Okay. Bill, let's see, 3 and 4.
Jacob said to Joseph, "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me and said to me, I'm going to make you fruitful and will increase your numbers. I will make you a community of peoples, and I will give this land as an everlasting possession to your descendants after you."
Okay, Holly, 5 through 7.
Now then, your two sons born to you in Egypt, before I came to you here, and will be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Any of the children born to you, I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson, line of sight issues. Any children born to you after them will be yours. In the territory they inherit, they will be reckoned under the names of their brothers. As I was returning from Padan to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan while we were still on the way, a little distance from Ephraim. So I buried her there beside the road to Ephraim, that is Bethlehem.
Okay, so he was saying, no matter how many children you have, these two I'm going to consider as my own children. I'm adopting them. And that was Ephraim and Manasseh, which is important because we're always think about 12 tribes, right? Especially
Right.
the Levites aren't going to get any land.
Right.
So this is still divided into 12 pieces. That's interesting. Okay, so verse 8. Let's see. Lois, verses 8 and 9.
When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, "Who are these?" "They are not the sons. They are the sons God has given me here," Joseph said to his mother. Then Israel said, "Bring them to me so that I may bless them."
Okay. Joyce, 10 and 11.
Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, so that he could not see. So Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, "I had not thought to see your face, and lo, God has let me see your children also."
Okay. Bill, comma, 12 through 14.
Then Joseph removed them from Israel's knees and bowed down with his face to the ground. And Joseph took both of them, Ephraim on his right toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh on his left toward Israel's right hand, and brought them close to him. And Israel reached out his right hand and put it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger. And crossing his arms, he put his left hand on Manasseh's head, even though Manasseh was the firstborn.
Okay. And then we see in verse 20, he said, he blessed them that day and said, "In your name will Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh."
Oh.
That's a blessing, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Now, let's see how he blesses the sons. Let's go to chapter 49. 49, verse 3 and 4. Let's see how he blessed Reuben, because Reuben's going to get that first land. He's the oldest, but he wasn't a good boy.
Right.
He was naughty. Okay.
He wasn't in favor.
So, yeah, I mean, he should get the double portion because he's the oldest, but he's not going to get that. It's going to basically go to Joseph. Joseph is going to get the double portion through his two boys. Okay, so 3 and 4, Ken.
Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. For you went up into your father's bed, onto my couch, and defiled it.
Now, the reason he did that is he wanted to proclaim himself as taking over his father's stuff right now. And that was the symbolism behind that. Now, next we have the land of Gad. Let's see where Gad is. Let's see, we have Judah. Anybody sees
Up
the
there
verse?
top, isn't it? Up there top, isn't it? Oh,
Not be where it is on the verses in chapter 49.
oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, 19. Yeah, we found it at the same time. Gad, remember Gad means troop. We talked about that before, that they would be warriors. Good thing, because where they landed, it's a good thing they were warriors. 19, yeah, just verse 19. Rod, would you read that?
Yep. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels.
Okay, so I mean, that's basically, he really got the truth on that, because they were always being attacked. Okay, and if you want some homework, you can just read through again to see what all the different sons would have let's see. Okay, let's go back then to Joshua. Joshua 12.
One question.
Yeah.
So when Jacob blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, they were infants, right?
Yeah, well,
They were pretty, 'cause he said he took them in his hands and, on his
Well-
knee, it said,
Sitting on his knee.
yeah, I'm not sure they were infants. They were probably youths.
youth, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we are on Joshua 12 verses 7 and 8. Lord, do you want to read that?
Here is a list of the kings of the land that Joshua and the Israelites conquered on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal Gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which rises towards Seir. Joshua gave their lands as an inheritance to the tribe of Israel according to their tribal division. The land includes the hills country, the western foothills, the Arabah, the mountain slope, the wilderness, and the Negev. These were the lands of the Hittites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, and the Jebusites. These were
Okay.
kings.
Right. Now, let's see if I can get this to work. I don't know why it popped out of where I was. Joshua 11. Come on. Joshua 12.
31 Kings and
9.
Okay.
Chapter 12. These are the kings of the land whom the Israelites had defeated, and half of Gilead to the border of Sihon, king of Heshbon.
Let's see.
Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the Israelites conquered them, and moved the lands of the
Verse
Hittites,
9.
There we go.
Hivites, and Jebusites. These were the kings. The king of Jericho, 1. The king of Ai near Bethel, 1.
There you go.
The king
All
of
right.
Jerusalem, 1. The king of Hebron, 1. The king of Jarmuth, 1. The king of Lachish, 1. The king of Eglon, 1. The king of Gezer, 1. The king of Deber, 1. The king of Geder, 1. The king of Hormah, 1. The king of Arad, 1. The king of Libnah, 1. The king of Adullam, 1. The king of Makkedah, 1. The king of Bethel, 1. The king of Tappuah, 1. The king of Hepher, 1. The king of Aphek, 1. The king of Lasharon, 1. The king of Madon, 1. The king of Hazor, 1. The king of Shimron Meron, 1. The king of Akshaph, 1. The king of Taanach, 1. The king of Megiddo, 1. The king of Kedesh, 1. The king of Jokneam in Carmel, 1. The king of Dor in Naphath Dor, 1. The king of Goyim in Gilgal, 1. The king of Tirzah, 1. 31 kings in all.
Okay.
Wow.
Makkedah and Makkedah.
Gilgal.
Mine
This
says
is all-
Mine
this-
says Galilee.
Really?
really.
Really?
Which version is that?
Revised Standard.
Oh. Don't worry
Who
about the
else said
phone. It's
Gilgal?
always spam that calls this time.
We have Gilgal.
Yeah, I know. I know. Like clockwork.
19.
Yeah.
Listed in the end of verse 23.
Yeah. Is Gilgal.
You're
Goyim?
saying-
Yeah.
Gilgal.
Yeah, there's fairly far apart. The okay, and Rod, you had asked me how long they had taken for all this to happen, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The wars. In the NIV, when I have it, had the Bible I have, it shows the year at the beginning of the chapter. So it started at
Oh,
1451 BC before they started, before they went into Jericho.
war.
And then
Yeah, right. Oh, okay.
1452, it said they had rest from the war. So it was a short time. Maybe it wasn't a year. That seems
Wow.
really short to me. But I would say probably definitely less than 5 years for them to take over all that area is just
Wow.
amazing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Right.
So we had some kings at the top in the northern section, and we had kings in the southern section. There were 16 northern kings mentioned and 15 southern kings mentioned. So 31 kings. And so we talked about that last time. You think about a king being like King Saul, right? Or King David over this huge territory. But basically every fortified city had what they called a king.
Like a mayor.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like a mayor. Because the tribes, the cities didn't always get along with each other, even though they were Canaanites. They just got together because that was the only way that they could see that they might survive, is to make allies of all the area and to fight together. So the South all fought together and the North all fought together, but it still didn't do them any good. Any questions so far?
It doesn't seem like 5 years would be that long a time, considering that the area is maybe 60 miles wide and less than 300 miles long.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
You're talking about is taking out cities.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem like it would. 5 years is, I mean, look at what they're doing in Ukraine, how many cities they're going to take out in weeks. Of
yeah.
course, the weapons are a little different, but that doesn't seem like
Yeah.
a long time.
They tried,
Especially when God's on their hand and just helping them along.
but when they tried to take over Afghanistan, they never were able to. So sometimes it's like when we fought in Vietnam, we never were able to just make a clean war of it and say, we're done. We won. We're going home now. Never were. So you never know. Sometimes they're fast and sometimes they're slow. According to the commentaries, it's 150 miles long and 20 to 50 miles wide, depending if you're about the top or the bottom. So you're right, it's not a very big space. You're absolutely right about that. Okay, so let's go into chapter 13 then. And it starts out really interesting. Paul, just verse 1.
Now Joshua was old and advanced in years, and the Lord said to him, "You are old and advanced in years, and there remains yet very much land to be possessed."
Okay.
Really? They didn't get it all.
You're old. I like that. God said to Joshua, you're old.
And advanced in years.
Yeah. In Tongan culture, that's not a bad thing. It's like saying, hey, you've survived all these years and you're so experienced and wise now. So, how is it in Hawaii? Is it okay to say to somebody you're old?
You respect their experience.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, of course, when they die, they become ancestors. And you venerate your ancestors.
Oh, they do that, huh? I didn't know that.
In Amakua.
Oh.
So they can become like demigods.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Yeah. Of course, Christian, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't say your ancestors become demigods. But that's a really interesting
But when the
background.
Christian missionaries came, that was a big revolution.
Yeah.
I mean, it split society. They actually warred against each other.
Wow. Yeah, I have Japanese friends, and these, like, witnessing to their parents was a big thing because the parents were into, ancestor worship. So that was a big hurdle.
Yeah, there was a village record book, and if you were bad, you were taken out of that record book. That was a major
Ooh.
sin if you were taken out of that book.
Yeah. Wow. So, and in America, it's not nice to say you're old, right? Because
No,
we kind of want everybody to be young in our culture, which is terrible. Because if you are older, that means you've gone through a lot in life, and you have really good advice to give because you've been there, done that for just about everything that the children could ask you about.
But it's part of life. You need a legacy. How can a young one leave a legacy?
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting, though, that God just straight up told Joshua, "You're very old." And there's still large areas of land to be taken over. So, that's just being very honest. All that verse, it shows God's honesty. God is the God of truth. And so he doesn't try to make it sound good. He just puts it the way it is. Joshua, it says in Joshua 24:29 that Joshua dies when he's 110. Now here God tells him you're very old, but we're far away from Joshua 29. So he's probably in his 90s here.
92.
yeah, according to this timeline that I have on my phone here, Joshua chapter 13 was about 1399 BC, and Joshua's farewell address was 1375.
Yeah, so these commentators, they don't agree on the dates. Especially, here's a big problem with the dates. And I'm not saying one is right and the other one's wrong. I'm just saying that they're different dates. And here's why. Because it talks about how the Jewish people were in Egypt for 400 years. But then when you count people's ages on the ancestry, it's much shorter than that. So it depends on which viewpoint you're taking. So it's okay if there's different years, but we have a general idea within a couple of 100 years of when this stuff was taking place.
Right.
Good point. Or the flood.
120, 160, and now Joshua was an old man at 110.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Before the flood, people lived much longer. After the flood, they lived like to 120. And we have other sources too, like Egypt, where people lived to be 120 at most. And I've had people conjecture that maybe it was something about the skies being so cloudy and people were able to live longer because of the conditions of the earth before the flood, and that things changed quite a bit after the flood. Who knows? Maybe God intervened and said, you know what? I think 120 is good.
Yeah, well, that's what it says in Genesis 6:3, isn't it? It says, I think it's Genesis 6. Let me see here. The Lord said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120. And that was right about the flood time.
Yeah, that's when you see all the change being made.
Right.
Is after the flood. In fact, if you look at people's ages, a few of those people that were living at that time died right at that flood. And then Noah's
Right.
and his family are the only ones who continue on. It's kind of interesting
Right.
if you look at the length of their life.
If that's the same.
Well, I think it was. Yeah.
I wondered about that myself, but that probably is so many years, so many moons and months.
Yeah. I mean, people have been good at astrology for a lot longer than we give them credit for. We always think that we're so modern and they were so dumb in the old days. It's not true. They're pretty smart about a lot of stuff. Mhm. Unless you were rich like a pharaoh. Yeah.
Or if you were blessed to do God's work.
Yeah.
That's how I've always looked at it. When I look at science, how do you get the two of them? Do they back up each other? I think they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you get a appendix that bursts, or you get a cut that gets infected and gives you
Abscess
blood poisoning. Yeah, abscess teeth. It's just a lot of stuff, plus wars. All that stuff could kill you back then.
Mhm.
Okay, so God is telling there's still a lot of land to be taken over. And then it's going to describe that in verse 2 through 5, Stephanie.
This is the land that yet remains, all the regions of Philistines and all those of the Jezreelites from the shore, which is east of Egypt, northward to the boundary of Kiran. It is reckoned as Canaanites. There are 5 rulers of Philistines, those of Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, and those of Avon. In the south, all the land of the Canaanites and Meria, which belongs to the Sodomites, to whatever, to the boundary of the Amorites, and the land of the Jews, and all Lebanon toward the sun rising from Baal Gad below Mount to the entrance of
Okay. So if you look at the map here, you have Simeon. Let me see if this will share screen. If I still have that map. Yes, I do.
I got one here too.
Okay, good. So you have Simeon, everything southwest of that area, they still hadn't conquered. And that's leading towards Egypt. It talks about that area
Right.
leading to Egypt. And then on the Mediterranean sea coast, you have Philistia. And those Philistines had good weapons. They were blacksmiths. That was their main occupation. So they had really nice weapons. And then it goes up and it talks about Sidon, which is all the way to the top. So basically this coastline, they weren't able to deal much with that all the way up to Sidon. And then you have this part that's above Manasseh and to the east of Naphtali that was not conquered yet. So that's quite a bit of territory to conquer.
That's modern day Golan Heights in there, isn't it?
You know what? I don't know modern day Israel. I wish I did.
I'm
Lua
pretty sure
knows.
that's, I'm pretty sure,
Lua knows I
I'm
want to
pretty
go
sure
to
that's
Israel
modern
someday.
day Golan Heights. Yeah,
Ah.
me too.
So they're going to be fighting these Philistines for a long time. And they're going to have the Babylonians and the Assyrians coming from the east for a long time. Just bad news. And God wanted them to have how much? How much did God tell them? Just step into it and take it? You
Right.
remember?
From forget the name of the river, not Ephrata, but
Euphrates.
Euphrates to over to Egypt and then way on up there. I mean,
All the way to
Iraq,
the
modern day
Mediterranean
Iraq,
Sea.
right, modern
Yeah.
day Iraq, Syria, parts of Syria, Egypt.
Yeah. There's just this huge thing. If they'd been able to take that, wouldn't have been very many
And just
enemies
walk
that
on it.
could. Yeah, that's what he said. Just step into it and take it. It's yours.
Right.
God, that was God's promise. Just have faith. But the problem is, if we don't have faith, even though we know God wants something for us, if we don't have faith, it's not going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a funny thing about how God works, is that he expects us to have faith. Like when they first entered the promised land and then they came back and they're like, we can't do this. But what they didn't know is that people were terrified of God's people because they'd heard about what had happened in Egypt. So they were terrified, but they didn't know that. But surely they could have gone in at that time. And who are the two people that said, let's go in and take it?
Caleb and
Joshua.
Yeah, Caleb and
Caleb.
Joshua. And we're going to see Caleb coming up to Joshua later on. I don't know if we're going to get to that today, but he's going to come up to Joshua and say, hey, don't forget, I'm one of them that was with you on that we should have taken it back then. Okay. Now, verse 6 and 7, Bill.
As for all the inhabitants of the mountain regions from Lebanon to Mizropha, that is, all the Sidonians, I myself will drive them out before the Israelites. Be sure to allocate this land to Israel for an inheritance, as I have instructed you, and divide it as an inheritance among the 9 tribes and half of the tribe of Manasseh.
Okay, so there's those 9 and the half tribe. And then we have the Reubenites and the Gadites we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay, so verses 8. Oh, by the way, if you're thinking, wait a minute, that's 9 tribes plus 2 more is 10, 11. The 12th are the Levites.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't
Yep,
get
yep,
a
yep.
big area. They're going to get cities spread throughout the whole land, which is kind of a neat thing. It's like you could have a church. They were the they were the priests and stuff.
Priestly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
imagine if you could only go to Jerusalem, let's say, to worship God. That'd be pretty bad.
Right.
So they were spread out throughout the land. Not that they had temples everywhere, but you at least had priests. Okay. Verses 8. Yeah, just 8.
Okay.
Okay.
The other half of Manasseh, the Reubenites, the Reubenites and the Gadites had received the inheritance that Moses had given them east of the Jordan, as he, the servant of the Lord, had assigned it to them.
Okay. 9 through 13, Lois.
It extended from Aor on the rim of the Arnon Gorge and from the town in the middle of the gorge, and included the whole plateau of Medeba as far as Dibon, and all the towns of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who ruled in Heshbon, out to the border of the Ammonites. It also included Gilead, the territory of the people of Geshur and Makkah, all of Mount Hermon, and all Bashan as far as Salekah, that is the whole kingdom of Og and Bashan, who had reigned in Ashtaroth and Edrei. He was the last of the Rephaites. Moses had defeated them and taken over their land, but the Israelites did not drive out the people of Geshur and Makkah, so they continue to live among the Israelites to this day.
Okay, 14, Joyce.
To the tribe of the Levi alone, Moses gave them no inheritance. The offerings by fire to the Lord of God of Israel are their inheritance, as he said to them.
Okay, so they would get a portion of the offerings that was given to the Levites when it was their turn. So they would rotate during different times of the year. They knew when their time of the year was to be there. But the portions of offerings were given to the Levites, and that included the burnt offerings, meal offerings, thank offerings, and trespass offerings. Those are all things that they could
What's
eat.
a trespass offering?
I don't know. I know that they could eat it. Look it up real quick.
The next verse says that he promised the food to them.
All right. Was a type of biblical sacrifice, specifically a sacrifice made as a compensation payment for unintentional and certain intentional transgressions. It was distinct from the sin offering. So that's interesting.
Here it says I guess, I don't, what's LE? Lamentations? What book?
Leviticus,
Yeah.
probably.
No, Leviticus. Yeah, why couldn't I think of that? Says trespass offering unto the Lord, a ram without blemish.
Yeah. An unblemished ram
what
or
you
a
already
male
said?
goat. Yeah. Unblemished ram or male lamb, in other words.
Oh, okay. All right.
And so let's say that you had taken a vow to be a Nazarite and had messed it up. You ate some raisins or drank some wine or something. You weren't supposed to do that. Then you have to pay the price with the sacrifice of the animal. Good question. I like good questions. Okay.
So they don't say anything here about all this that they're doing about killing everybody either, do they? It wasn't said in here that, okay, we need to wipe them all out, run them out, kill them.
There is a place where it said that. I couldn't tell you exactly where.
Moses had defeated and driven out.
Yeah,
So
but they were to do that though.
It said that Moses said he had to do it.
Yeah.
but they're not doing it.
No,
They wiped out Jericho, they wiped them out.
yeah, they wiped out a lot, but there are some that they didn't follow.
Right.
But yeah, most of them, as you're reading, it talks about how they killed everybody.
I have a footnote to compare Judges 1:27 through 29, and I look at that whole paragraph talks about how they left all the Canaanites. They did not drive the Canaanites out of all that.
Right.
Yeah. And if they
They
had,
came back to bite
they would
them.
have had a lot less problems, right?
Right.
But sometimes we think, God, I've got a better idea. Let me tell you how this should be done.
Yeah,
I mean, it's true.
I know.
I'm sure
Yeah.
somebody was saying, look, that's really mean to kill all these people. You know,
It came down.
let's not do that. And then it came back to bite them.
I think it came down to faith.
Yeah. Lack of faith.
Because this said here too that Israelite was good at hand-to-hand fighters, and were successful with their enemies in the hill country, but they were no match for the chariots of iron in the plains.
Oh, that's definitely true. Yeah.
You can see that their faith, I think, was.
I mean, the chariots were like tanks. So you've got your M16 and you've got a tank coming towards you. Pretty scary stuff. That's how they felt about the chariots. Okay.
I know the Canaanites became the Phoenicians, the sea people. So they were one of the big
Oh,
sailing empires.
yeah.
Like one of their big cities was the guys that Hannibal came from when they fought the Romans. Those are Phoenicians in Africa.
You have you have a lot of area that they had to deal with enemies, like Tyre even eventually.
All of modern day Lebanon, these are all Canaanites.
Yeah. So, okay. How are we doing for time? We're almost up. Where are we at now? 15.
16.
Okay. Why don't we stop here? Because we're only about 5 minutes till. Ooh, I need a pen.
This narration, physical video of what the lamb So you could get a feeling of what was highlands,
Hmm.
what was valley and gorge and stuff.
Requests.
Connie and I are going to Salt Lake City. She's gonna have her eyes checked. I'm gonna have my eyes checked. And the same building at the same time on different floors.
Well, that's great. You could arrange that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope the roads are nice.
Mm.
Tomorrow?
Thursday.